with access at fawning time, the first fawners actually just about live in the trees and come out to the pasture to fawn. It seems to make them much more settled. The moment they are unsure about something, they pound into the trees. And the result showed when we brought them in before weaning, and the hinds that had access to the trees had 3% less wet dries amongst them than the ones straight out in the paddock. So yeah, I feel there's a big gain to be made. A lot of it is controlling the spring growth, simply that, using the cattle in amongst the deer till fawning. But also this year we tried putting ewes and lambs in amongst some of our first fawners, which were set stocked at a slightly lighter rate, and being able to control their spring feed, one, to stop a hind from possibly getting too fat and having fawning problems later on, and two is just maintaining quality. So when you feel the time is right, most of the fawning is over, you can pull the sheep out and then let the pasture keep growing around those hinds and fawns. We put our hinds and fawns into paddocks 3 days before weaning. So on the third day, when we were all set for that weaning, we brought that mob into the shed, drenched all of our fawns, put the fawns straight back to the paddock, and put the hinds well away. This really keeps the fawns settled. We had a few 18-month leaders that we put in with them, just 10 or a dozen with a mob of 300. About it. Stress-free is as close as I can get to stress-free.
Weaning success is all about minimising stress. Handle the weaners before weaning, so bring them in a little bit earlier so they're familiar with the situation while they're still with their mother. Make sure that they go back into a familiar environment, so make sure that they know the paddock they go back into, put them back in with their own cohort to ease the stress. Try a soft weaning option that they can lead them through and calm them right down, so you're not having them bouncing off the fences, and you're minimising your losses and your stress.
The facial eczema affected our yearlings, 14-month stags through the winter. We lost a few there and a few more peeled over through the springtime. Maybe the bigger cost was actually in the hinds trying to get into fawn. We seemed to run into that late April, or 20th of April, when we had our peak of eczema. Hinds just stopped getting in fawn. So 5% more dries in the system that shouldn't have been there. The palm kernel has been useful, yes. The hinds seem to get onto it very well, but the fawns are a lot slower on it. The biggest gain seemed to be back pre-weaning. It kept the condition on the hinds majorly. I feel that we need time to get the fawns used to it. I start the end of January, seems crazy at the time, but as a rule February can be quite dry. By the time you're really wanting to feed, those fawns have got the capacity and are used to the system to eat a decent amount to make it all worthwhile.
We have produced a soil map of this property, and we have also produced the fact sheets of each of those soils, providing information on physical properties, chemical properties of soils, and very interestingly, some of the vulnerability factors for those soils, such as vulnerability for compaction, vulnerability for leaching. And we have also produced good water quality map now. In some areas nitrogen was discharged more, and in some areas phosphorus is lost more. And in some other areas the pathogens are showing up very significantly. So in future, perhaps what we would be thinking of doing here would be address those issues by giving or working on best management practices, so that here there are about 60 farmers here now. So all those farmers who are participating in this deer focus farm can be and will be benefited from those sort of information and advice.